The Kansas Strengthening Families Initiative. The process.
The incorporation of strengthening families into a statewide effort really came out of some thinking that we were doing about doing a statewide child abuse prevention plan. And when we looked at other plans, one of the things we noticed was that they were all very focused on just the prevention aspect of child abuse neglect. And when we looked at it, we said, you know what, we want a broader look at prevention.
I think we recognized that we were at the beginning of an economic downturn in a community that was experiencing a tremendous amount of layoffs. And we could see that those layoffs were hitting in the age group of new parents, of young parents, and that was creating a tremendous amount of stress for young families. We decided that we needed to form a community response team that was an ongoing team. It consisted of about 50 representatives from 35 agencies, and we formed work groups. And we started looking at how we could address the problem and address the situation within the context or under the umbrella of the Strengthening Families Initiative and trying to promote the protective factors.
It gets health to the table, it gets social work and prevention, it gets substance abuse, it gets that financial piece. So it really is a comprehensive way to look at it from a family piece rather than a siloed or a segmented funding stream.
The biggest disconnect, I think, from the average mom and dad is, where do I go in times of need? What are my support services? So we took the protective factors, we took the Strengthening Families Plan, and integrated it in a concrete way with our staff. First, we trained our staff members on what the protective factors were, what the vision of the group was, to make Kansas the best place for children, and then in a practical way integrate it so it was useful. An example of that is we trained all our staff on the Parents Helpline, which is sponsored by the Kansas Children's Service League. And it's a 24-hour-a-day access for parents that have just about any question about parenting.
Verna Weber, Executive Director for the Center for Children and Families in Garden City, Kansas, says, I believe that we need continual conversation and information sharing with all parents about how important it is for them to understand that they are not alone in raising their children. It is important for them to understand that they will have problems and they should not hesitate to seek help.
There is not a dedicated Strengthening Families funding stream. Strengthening Families in Kansas really has been integrated to a number of other funding sources. Grantees are asked to show how their work fits in with the Kansas Strengthening Families plan.
I think it's brought new partners to the table. I don't think that the prevention and early childhood world had been working very much with hospitals and with the medical community, with health and mental health. And I think that that's been a huge result of all this. I think we've also really brought law enforcement to the table. The DA's office and the Wichita Police Department have been partners, particularly in getting us data and in getting us information that we can then subsequently use to drive prevention programs.
We've had 2 local communities that have really taken the Strengthening Families approach as their framework. In Garden City, Kansas, they've partnered with Tyson, which is a large meatpacking plant, and they've had a lot of success in engaging the community because of the partnership with that business. In Sedgwick County, which is Wichita, Kansas, they've partnered with local law enforcement in the hospitals. They have the highest number of births in the state of Kansas, and the partnership with the hospitals has really allowed them to reach families right at birth to make sure that they're getting the support and services that they need.
What makes Strengthening Families different is that it's a collaborative approach to focusing on a broad vision. You actually go to the parents, you find out what their needs are, you listen to them, and then you try to integrate it in a way that can be useful for the different stakeholders involved.
The next steps for Strengthening Families in Kansas are to provide technical assistance to communities to help them organize and set specific goals for their communities around the Strengthening Families framework.
We're also using the Illinois model and have translated the protective factors into parent language and what this means for how you interact with your child. We're going to start 4 parent cafes. The other thing that we're looking at is ways to measure what difference we're having with protective factors by having different programs use the protective factor survey, which is a way that captures the presence and the perceptions of protective factors within a family. So if we have a common tool, we'll be able to say, this is what the level of protective factors are with different families.
It's really an inclusive plan and an inclusive approach, so we welcome new partners all the time and open it up to everyone who's interested in child abuse and neglect prevention.